This woman left her husband when she thought she was dating actor Dacre Montgomery. See what happens.
He tells me that he's Dacre Montgomery. That's like one of my favorite actors. And me and him just really hit it off. But of course, I'm suspicious from the get-go until he starts doing things that make me believe that he is who he is. I am obsessed with Stranger Things. Billy is just this bully. He kind of comes in, tries to dominate, which is totally unlike his actual personality.
What's the reason that you guys aren't able to meet face to face?
Well, see, okay, that's one thing that we actually bonded over. And basically through the relationship, he was venting to me after a few months about his partner, saying she's very controlling of him. He doesn't get to do the things he wants to do. You know, she's always there. She's always got to supervise. And I kind of empathize with that because my ex-husband was that way. At about a year after we kind of admitted feelings for each other, he said, you know, there's nothing like, you know, the feeling of love when it's reciprocated. And I said, what? And he said, I'm indirectly asking you out. And I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of stupid about this. I was like, what do you mean asking me out? And he said, I want you to be my girlfriend. And he was just like, but you got to keep it quiet. He said, because, you know, I'm still with Liv. And he was like, but I'm not technically with her. He said they had broken up.
Did he ever post anything that they were broken up at that time, or?
There were things I noticed. Basically, at the time that he said that they had broken up, he said they've been broken up for about 6 months. When I went back into his past history, like on his Instagram and things, the romantic sort of, you know, flirty messages that they would send to each other, like, you know, post about each other, had stopped within that time period. They weren't doing Valentine's Day posts. They weren't doing birthday posts. He wasn't posting about her. She wasn't posting about him. The only thing that I have seen in the last 2 years of those two posting about each other recently was a thing where she was posting about their 5-year anniversary.
A year of not talking to somebody on the phone is very long time, Michaela.
That is one thing that was a huge red flag to me, but at the same time, I kind of understood because he said where she was so controlling of him and he couldn't get away from her, like she's glued at his hip. He wasn't able to call. He wasn't able to, you know, video chat and stuff like that. He gave me an ultimatum. He said, listen, he said, it's either your husband, he said, or it's me. And I said, look, there's no competition. I said, you treat me better. So I told my ex-husband, I said, listen, I said, it's not working out. I said, you're not letting me be me. You're not letting me be free. I said, I think you need to leave. So he left. Within 2 months, he was gone. You know, my ex-husband is out of the house. I said, I'm separated from him. I said, there's no one here except for me and, you know, my daughter, Rain.